This is a Presonus preamp that I got from Sweetwater, and the factory installed tube is a generic Chinese made 12AX7 that's in here. And people say that it can sound a little more high-end or crispy. I got a different, very mellow Gold Lion. This is a genreless Gold Lion, same model number, 12AX7. So we're gonna see how this goes and test it out. Now they say that if you swap out the tube in a pre, it's going to invalidate the warranty on the piece of gear. So I'm aware of that. If you are opening any piece of gear, there is a potential that you will get shocked. A lot of times the shocks can come from capacitors inside the gear. Capacitors essentially can operate as a small little battery, and so what they do is they can retain a charge after the equipment is either turned off or powered down or unplugged or anything. So you want to give those time to dissipate. A smaller piece of gear such as this is not going to hold a crazy charge as much as like a huge guitar amp that's going to be, you know, powering a 100-watt speaker or something like that. So in this case, what I've done is I turned it off. I unplugged it overnight just to be safe. I mean, you always want to be cautious because you never know, so be careful inside of here of what you're touching. You want to stay as much away that you can from metal parts, touching really anything inside other than exactly what you're working on. And if you want to maintain the utmost safety that you can get some little gloves or something to sort of insulate your hands a little bit. What I'm going to open this with is this little screwdriver that I got in a packet I ordered from Amazon. This is to operate on computers. I've swapped out memory and battery on the inside of laptops when you used to be able to open them and do that. This one says 1.5. It's basically a tiny little screwdriver that can fit these tiny little screws. I believe I got this pack with a few things off of Amazon for like $6. And so, lo and behold, luckily it fits. The lip might come up under here, so I'm not exactly sure yet. I can see the tube inside this little metal grate. Hopefully, what I'll be able to do is just sort of pull this out and swap this one in. What I like to do with the screws, get a little tight there. I have this container here, just a small little plastic container that I got from IKEA for like a couple of bucks. You know, probably better practice not to leave your screws just like lying around on a table so they can roll off everywhere, especially something this tiny. Also about the tube, my information, background, and knowledge was on guitar amp tubes. And so I saw, you know, I'm looking at these tubes. I've never swapped out a pre, and I saw Class A. And so something popped into my mind about how Class A runs super hot and inefficient and essentially is always on all the time and represents the entire waveform. So not the best. I was like, how can Class A tubes be the same in preamps as they are in guitar amps? You know, I never really thought about what kind of tubes were in a preamp. I don't know. And so these are literally the exact same tubes that you would use in the preamp stage of a guitar amp. Same thing. And it turns out that guitar amps actually have two stages of tube groups. They have the preamp stage, which would be something like these guys. And then they have the power amp stage, which would be the big boy tubes that are gonna have your more Class A, Class AB distinctions. Oh, here we go. The unveiling. Whoop. Oh. Anyway, in my lesson, I'm going to have a lesson on pairing amps and speakers, and I will explain all the Class A versus Class B versus Class AB things that you might see around here and there. But for these purposes, these are all Class A. That's okay. Don't get tripped up on it. It's kind of a different thing. What you're pushing here is, so in a guitar amp, that Class A preamp tube is going to take an instrument and push it to line level. And here we're taking a mic level signal and pushing it to line level. You know, same similar thing going on here. So these are not our big boys. What I'm seeing inside here, see these guys right here? The circle ones, those are, I believe, capacitors. Those are the ones you really don't want to touch. You know, we're at low risk here, but those guys are the ones. I think what I should be able to do is just gently pull this tube out and swap the other one in. Let's look at the other one. They look exactly the same. Okay, so I just need to I want to be very careful. It's glass. Wow, that thing is really in there. Looks like it's coming out a little bit. You know, if you're having trouble with something, it's okay. Stop and look it up. If this is super tight, is that normal? For one. You know, I don't want to be yanking on anything and break it, or cut myself, or do anything like that. So, yep, normal. Another thing that I found that was mentioned is that sometimes tubes can have retainers, and so you want to make sure that anything spring-loaded or around the tube is disconnected before you start trying to pull it out. I didn't think that this had anything. Just looking at it, it doesn't look like there's anything stopping it. And so I was like, well, what's this white guy? The white guy is not something that should be blocking it. It's the ceramic holder for it, so it says. You're just supposed to keep gently rocking it and pulling up until it comes out. Maybe get a better grip on it. I used to do live sound for a long time, and these things have saved my life and my hands many, many times. Whew, some of these things get tightened so tight. These are essentially just jar openers. They're basically little pieces of rubber, and they help you get a better grip on things. I've got a ton of these black ones that I ordered. Why did I choose rubber? Rubber is going to be an insulator against electrical components. What you would not want to do here is say, get out your needle nose pliers and try to muscle this thing out. The obvious does need to be stated. I'm gonna cut it. I got more of these. Improvise if you got to, I guess. See, I can like see the pins on the bottom. I know, I don't want to take the whole thing apart. Because I'm thinking if I could pull it straight up. So what I'm seeing now, like I'm thinking about taking the whole thing apart, right? These screws, they're around the input and output jacks of these XLR inputs. However, it looks like they're just gripping on the inside. So I really should be able to just unscrew it. And then another concern that I have is I'll have to turn it on its knobs like that to press down on it, which I don't want to do. It feels like the bottom's coming out and the top isn't. Okay, when in doubt, take a break. I see pins. All right. Okay, that's it. You sort of have to move it back and forth side to side a little bit. There's our factory tube. So now we're going to install our new guy. I noticed exactly the way that the pins were facing as I took this out. And it looks like you've got a little gap here at the bottom. So you want to face that gap at the bottom, at least for this. Make sure all these little holes line up. Yeah, they're all lined up. I can see them. And we'll try our back and forth method. Okay, it's actually stuck in the spot that it's supposed to be stuck in, but we want it to sit flush. Okay. At this point, my hands are hurting and I'm really close, but I totally want to give up. Question. Can this operate with these pins sticking out like this? Because I am done with this and I want to burn it down. No, not the best idea. Not a good idea at all. The pins need to make full connection and be seated all the way into this housing. Otherwise, you could have problems. Gain problems, not having the signal come all the way through, things could fall out. It's not the best idea. I don't get to give up. We have to keep going. So there's that. This thing is so surprisingly tight. So if anybody experiences that, I mean, just know, apparently that's really, really normal. It's supposed to like have the grip of death on this thing. I don't know if people have this problem when they switch out like guitar tubes, but damn. It doesn't feel the greatest on your fingers. I want to know how much pressure I can or should put on this because I can put a lot. The glass is the thinnest and most sensitive at the tip here. And it says that the glass can even be 1 to 2 millimeters up here at the tip. So you really want to sort of try to coax it in closer to the base. Treat this like a light bulb, you know? I mean, it essentially is in a lot of ways. So we'll see how long this takes me to get done. Okay, it worked. All right, this is exciting. Here's what we have now. You can see this is seated all the way to the base. It says that it takes 20 to 50 hours for these tubes to, you know, get good and warmed up and have their total clarity and usefulness. So, you know, I'm going to allow for that. We'll put this back on. Now that we've swapped out the tube in the preamp, I am going to install it in my little case here. What this is a Gator hard case. This is a 19-inch. The 19-inch actually indicates width from there to there on the inside. The other measurement is depth. So this one is a 13-inch. I've got a DBX 160A compressor limiter in here. They don't make these anymore. I had to get this one used. This little setup that I have here is one channel for my vocals. So I've got the compressor that's going to sit on the bottom, and then I've got the Presonus Channel Strip that's going to sit on the top. The reason I'm putting this channel strip on the top is because our tube that we just replaced is on the top. I am going to let it breathe above this compressor. This is to rack unit little case. Sometimes what you want to do is leave an extra space in between some of this gear so it has some room to dissipate some of the heat, so that, you know, you don't have things stacked and stacked and stacked on top of one another. But for this case, it's going to be okay for these two just to be sitting right next to each other. If you see the specs, it sometimes says just U, or it could say RU. That stands for rack unit. So this is a 2RU case. This is one rack unit, indicating one piece of gear. It's usually 2 screws width of gear. This one came with the screws, clearly labeled Gator cases, which I'm thankful of. I didn't know if I would have to buy something separately. When you do the screws here on the side, see this little washer? That'll go onto the screw first. And then, super easy. This is a portable case, really. It has latches on the side, and it comes with a front and a back. But what I did is I'm gonna leave the back open and then just hook everything up through there. And I can just set it right next to me. I, you know, at this point, don't need an entire huge rack of gear here in my basement. My goal is just to get my vocals squashed out a little bit. And there you have it. Pre on the top, compressor on the bottom. One thing about this DBX, it does not have an on-off switch. That threw me off for a minute. I just didn't realize that. They just don't have an on-off switch because it adds extra circuitry, and this thing is there to do one thing: squash the crap out of whatever you put into it. This compressor is awesome. It's really aggressive. It has one function, and so it doesn't divert anything, even to running through on-off. It says most studios leave it on all the time and just never turn it off. I can just leave it on indefinitely. Sometimes they're on for years. I'm not using a compressor as an insert. I am going directly from my microphone, which is an SM7, into the mic pre, out of the mic pre, into the compressor, out of the compressor, into my inbox studio, which I have hooked up to Pro Tools. What this does is it's just a direct chain of mic to compression into my DAW, which is Digital Audio Workstation. So first we want to come from the microphone. I've got my SM7 behind me. And we're going to take our XLR coming out of the microphone, and we're going to go input on this side on the mic pre. Okay, make sure that connection is nice and solid. Then we're going to come out of the mic pre with another separate XLR here. We're going to take the other side of this, and we're going to go into the compressor input right here. Okay. I have the power to the pre all hooked up. We want to set this little box inside there, not having any strain on the cables. And then we are going to come out of the compressor. I have this hooked up behind me into mic input 3 in my inbox. So we're going to go out, compressor into input. Now we just talked about the compressor's power. I bought this used, so it wasn't sent with a power cable, but no matter. A lot of the pieces of gear, if you look at the cable, you can see the specs on it. This one is a standard IEC, I think it's 13, if I remember correctly, and interchangeable. I have a little tiny bass amp right above this camera, but interchangeable with the bass amp to my compressor. So all I have to do is just buy an extra one online, and we'll put our power onto there. For now, we're borrowing. That's okay, whatever works. Okay, so there you have it. Really simple. Just putting a compressor in line with the pre and going straight to one channel on the inbox. And so this is how this is gonna sit for me. Everything is gonna stay hooked up exactly as I've set it. I'm not using my pre for compression or for EQ really. So you can see these are engaged, indicating that this is bypassed. That's the compression bypass, that's the EQ bypass. Here's our compressor section. Here's our EQ section. I really am just using this for the tube that we just swapped out. Right here, this green light is a high pass filter. So this is filtering out everything 80 hertz and below. That's engaged here. Just filtering out some of the low end crap. Just initially, I'm hearing a humming. You should let it warm up for a little bit before you start to use it, or really crank it up and, have a decent outcome, and test it out for quite a while before you can really make a full decision. Thank you guys for checking this out, and I'll have more videos to come as it goes along about different stuff that I'm doing with audio, and hopefully I explained it in a manner that was really easy to understand. I mean, that's my goal here. Simple hookups, simple explanations.